Welcome to What is Africa to Me? And today we are continuing with our series on issues to do with Africa. And today I just want to talk about some narratives that are important. We should understand that narratives are the way we live, the way we understand each other, the way we explain and represent not just the continent, but also its people. And in today's case, I wanted to talk about two narratives, one of which is about writing itself. And writing from the days of ancient Egyptians has been very important to explaining what has happened. Much of what we know about Egypt, actually, is coming from what were either painted or sculpted and kept in the tombs and the pyramids and the burial chambers in those pyramids and the shrines. And also there are a few books, not only that are stone, but some of the books that were written in hieroglyphics. And one of the things that we see is how they describe the philosophy of the life of the Egyptians, ancient Egyptians. I was particularly taken by one of the books that was written in ancient times by the scribes. It was a scribe called Katie, that is a writer called Katie, who lived in, I think he lived in the 18th dynasty. And he was talking about the various trades, that is, the various professions. And here's a guy who, interesting, at a very early age, was, walking along with his son and telling the son how to choose professions. And of course, he was biased. And one of the things he talks about is how every profession is different from the others. But one profession that he extols is that of writing, a scribe. He says all the other professions are more wretched than the others, except the scribe. He says a scribe has no boss. He is his own boss and he does what he wants. And he says that you get a lot of fulfillment in being a writer, which is true, actually. It reminds me of, contemporary writing in Africa. Particularly the writings of, Chinua Achebe. Today I was teaching a book called Things Fall Apart. Now a lot of people have taught this book or have read this book. But to me, I really enjoy the language in this book, because we have to understand how Things Fall Apart revolutionized writing, not just in Africa. Because what it did was to subvert not just the representation of Africa, but also the language that we speak with, the language that we represent our communities. It is the very first time that we had a specially produced African English. Now, you understand that English is an international language with various characters, various characteristics, some of which they're very regionally based. But in the African sense, Chinua Achebe gave us the quintessential African English in the way he described the society, the Morpheus society, that his main character, Okonkwo, belonged, and how he used a lot of proverbs, the concept of time, something like on every market day, or the second moon, or 3 moons ago, which basically, it's an African way of representing time, like 3 weeks ago or 3 months ago, or every week. It talks about them in terms of months and markets, because that's how we represent time. That's how we represent the dating system in the African sense. But at the same time, you have this idea of in Things Fall Apart, you see a lot of juxtaposition, an attempt by Achebe to represent a society that is very sophisticated, very complex, something that cannot be flattened. Because previously, before Chinua Achebe, and part of the reason he wrote this book was to fight back or get away from flattening of African experiences, representing them in one way, or some kind of exoticizing the people, and that was so common in the colonial period, and particularly in colonial literature or literatures of the early 19th century, which did not give a full measure to what an African life is. And so I was very, very much taken aback. Not taken aback, but taken in by the language that Achebe uses in Things Fall Apart, that has been taken over by so many other people. In fact, it's a foundational book for African literature, but it laid down a marker on regarding how to talk about traditional societies, and particularly societies that were coming into contact with modernity, and having to explain to the wider world what it meant to live as an African from every point of view. In Things Fall Apart, we see the judicial system. We have the social and political structures of African societies, traditional African societies, explained to us. And when you look at it in detail, we realize that it is almost different. It's not different. It's actually the same as in any other societies that is advanced. It was advanced. They had, things like democracy, how to arrive at a decision, how to make decisions in a government where there is no single leader, where elders have to come together. It gave us a way to understand an African judicial system. How do they make justice possible? How do they decide cases? And you have domestic case there, for example. You had issues of how do you interact with individuals, the courtesies that every person is supposed to be aware of and supposed to practice courtesy. You courtesy somebody else. You make sure that you show respect to your neighbor. You show respect to the other person, which is very common in African societies, and that were not represented in traditional colonial literatures. You see in Things Fall Apart how they deal with the concept of the divine. Divinity is a big issue. The faith, the spiritual world, which the African believed in, is quite about faith. And we see how there is an argument between Mr. Brown, who is the first missionary, and elders of this village, and they get to understand that actually they may be praying to one God. The Africans are not about they're not about these. They're not heathen. They're not praying to wooden gods or wooden stuff. They have actually